Report to the 5-star generals. Global situation briefing. November 5th, first piece of intelligence. The Battle of Red Army City is officially over. On November 4th, Russian forces declare full control of the city. Only a handful of Ukrainian troops remain, awaiting cleanup operations. Of the 5,500 defenders, most have been killed or captured, and even Ukraine's 155th Mechanized Brigade reportedly raised the white flag. The Leopard 2 tank battalion has vanished. Russia's tactic was textbook, the classic leave one way out strategy, designed to bait reinforcements. The supply road to Red Army City was under total Russian control, and every Ukrainian convoy bringing in supplies was precisely destroyed. Inside the city, troops ran out of food, ammo, and medical supplies. Drones dropping water bottles made little difference. The wounded couldn't be evacuated. It was a slow collapse. Even if Zelensky sent another 100,000 soldiers, it wouldn't matter. Ukraine's elite units are gone. At this point, negotiation might be the only card left. Second piece of intelligence. The US military is massing near the Caribbean, and Maduro is scrambling for help, reaching out to China, Russia, and Iran for missiles, radar, and drones. American media even reported that Maduro wrote directly to Beijing. When asked, the Chinese Foreign Ministry gave a brilliantly ambiguous reply. China and Venezuela engage in normal cooperation, not aimed at any third party, and not subject to interference. No confirmation, no denial, just enough to make Trump lose sleep. Russia, meanwhile, was far less subtle. A State Duma official said Moscow does not rule out supplying Venezuela with Hazel Tree missiles. Keep in mind, Russia has already delivered S-300 and Pantsir S-1 air defense systems in past years. This new statement is basically a public jab at Washington. Trump, on his end, has deployed the US S-4 carrier group and even drawn up strike lists for Venezuelan targets, hoping to force Maduro out. But now that China and Russia are both hovering over the board, the game just got a lot more complicated. If the US really wants to pull the trigger, it'll have to think twice about who else is watching. Third piece of intelligence. South Korea's courtroom just erupted into chaos. During a live trial, former Army Special Forces Commander Kwon Jong-un dropped a bombshell. He claims that President Yoon Suk-yeol once ordered him to arrest Han Dong-hoon and execute him personally. The moment those words hit the air, Yoon froze on the spot, his face turning white as paper. To make things worse, Han Dong-hoon isn't some rival. He's the man who actually saved Yoon's career. Last year, when Yoon's martial law attempt collapsed, it was Han, then head of the ruling party, who stepped in to buy him time and keep his political future alive. And now he's hearing that Yoon allegedly wanted him dead. Han later told reporters he was shocked and heartbroken, even if Kwon's claim still needs verification. Just saying it in open court is enough to shake Yoon's entire presidency. Watching his pale, frozen expression in that moment, it's clear Yoon's downfall has already begun. Fourth piece of intelligence. The Taliban is dancing on the edge of a knife. In November, they sent an ambassador to India, and now they're planning to dispatch another diplomat in December, a move that openly upgrades ties with New Delhi and tramples right over Pakistan's red line. Islamabad has long feared being encircled, with India on one side and an unpredictable Afghanistan on the other. Now the Taliban's cozying up to India and letting the Pakistani Taliban TTP operate freely across the border, carrying out attacks inside Pakistan. The two sides had been holding peace talks, but every time Pakistan asked for a written agreement to crack down on militants, the Taliban backed out at the last minute. Now, Pakistan's military is on alert, preparing for potential action. If the Taliban still refuses to rein things in, the southern border of Asia could ignite, and they'll have no one to blame but themselves. Fifth piece of intelligence. On November 4th, Romania's defense minister announced that the country bought 18 F-16 fighter jets from the Netherlands for just €1. Yeah, you heard that right, €1. Considering a single F-16 normally costs at least €26 million, that's a €470 million fleet practically for free. But of course, there's no such thing as a free lunch. First off, Romania still has to pay 21 million euros in value-added tax, calculated based on a declared value of 100 million euros, so the Netherlands still makes a decent profit. Second, no one's mentioned the condition of the planes. It's just like when Russia sold an old aircraft carrier to India for $1. The ship itself was cheap, but the refit and maintenance costs nearly bled them dry. So, while Romania might look like it just scored a bargain, don't be surprised if they end up crying over the maintenance bills later. Sixth piece of intelligence. China and Russia just teamed up to make a big move. Tajikistan has officially decided to take back the Ani Air Base, kicking out the Indian Air Force after 20 years of stationing there. That's a huge blow to India's regional posture. The Ani base was strategically critical. India moved in back in 2002, spent $100 million upgrading it, and stationed Su-30 MKI fighter jets there. From that base, they could launch low-altitude strikes deep into Central Asia and monitor the Western corridor, keeping an eye on both China and Pakistan. Now that they've been forced to withdraw, India's forward air presence in Central Asia is basically gone overnight. Let's be real, India's ambitions have been getting bolder. They've tried to set up bases in Seychelles, Oman, even Iran, and the overseas military footprint was starting to rival the US. But this time, they got boxed in. China and Russia applied heavy pressure. Tajikistan simply couldn't resist. Its economy depends on Russian migrant remittances and over $8 billion in Chinese loans. So offending Beijing and Moscow, not an option.